first describe what it is. So prompt chain, in my opinion, is nothing else than just a couple of functions that execute a prompt, but then the result of one of those prompts goes into the next one. So that's what I call that's my definition for a prompt chain. So it's just prompt and then another prompt and then another prompt. So you can have like 10 different prompts that are chained together to get a better result than one prompt could do on its own. So you split up the prompt into smaller steps, maybe. So you in order to get a better result. For example, you could want to write a blog in Russian about crypto. But first, you write a blog in English about crypto, and then the next prompt would translate the English version into Russian. Maybe that will have a better result because the knowledge in English has more knowledge. Something like that is as an example. Maybe there's nobody writing about crypto in Russian, and then it doesn't give a good result. So in this way, you can maybe chain prompts together. You can chain many prompts together, and it's not only chaining, but you can also combine multiple results of different prompts into one, input those prompt results into a bigger prompt where you add them all together, for example. There's other ways also, but it's almost like programming. So you write functions, you combine the results of functions together into a bigger function. That's how I see it.
And I would add that you don't even need to code. The prompt chaining, it's just the literal step of saying, I want this, now do this, then do this, and then do this, and then do that. That set of chains gets you a much better result than if you put write a cryptocurrency article in English, then translate it to Russian, and then write a tweet and
make it more engaging, make it shorter.
Exactly. Well,
the model is really good, but it can't reason so good that it understands all those steps and executes it all at the same time. So if you split it up into smaller steps, it tends to work way better.
Way better. Yeah. And so I think there's an opportunity for corporations to develop their own prompt chains inside their organizations. I think we've started with prompt libraries, and that's what I've been seeing online so far. What I haven't seen is a good repository of prompt chaining, because I think that is where prompt engineering is going to go right now, is the more complex, multi-stage, but replicable prompts, so that you can accomplish a task. Say, write 100 articles. Here's a list of ideas. Write a blog about each of them, but you don't want them to all look the same. So how do you create prompts that will then switch things up? And so sometimes the blog will be written but in the style of Harvard Business Review, sometimes in the style of New York Times, so you could automatically build some variations into the prompt chains, so that you can then get much more complex and varied results, more like what you would get from a human.
What are some companies that you think that could make use of prompts really quickly and get a huge return out of it immediately?
Well, I think anyone who thinks they can use ChatGPT by going to prompt chaining as a philosophy is just going to get more benefits from it. So everyone who can use it is already going to get better results. And people are already doing prompt chaining. They're just not doing it so much in a replicable way, right? Because when you're interacting with ChatGPT and having a conversation, you're doing a prompt chain. But where we're going with prompt engineering is, how do we create and design that chain so that it can be replicable over and over again for a specific business?
It needs to be programmable. It needs to be programmable and automatable. Otherwise, you're going to be the bottleneck as a human being, because you need to input it into the chat and get the result and put it into another chat and like that. It takes a lot of time. So if you are able to program with it, of course, you can automate it, you can scale it. And as an example to your question, I think maybe big companies that write a lot of articles right now, that they can probably use prompt chains to get to validate their articles, or maybe transform it into social media posts, for example. Tools like Copy AI can already help with that probably, but I think if you make it programmable and automatable for your whole pipeline of articles that comes out of every day, that you can, for example, automatically create a Twitter post, a LinkedIn post, something like that, and automatically post it
with the right tone of voice.
Then yeah, with the right tone of voice, then it will probably make them much more productive with their time.
So I want to give one example that I really like. So my background, I did a lot of disaster response humanitarian work. I worked for the United Nations in Afghanistan and other places. And one of the most time-consuming tasks for people in the humanitarian sector is writing proposals and writing reports. Because, you know, someone gives you $5 million to build shelters, they expect quarterly updates about how those projects are going. They also expect a monitoring and evaluation report on an annual basis. They require that the project proposals be written in a standard format. So with prompt chaining, I couldn't get ChatGPT to write me a good proposal all at once. And that's actually where the idea came from. What I did is okay, start with the concept, write a summary. All right, let's write a section 1 piece under these standards. Write section 2, including these standards. Write section 3 in this specific way. And so by putting those together, I got it to write a 10-page report, a 10-section report or project proposal. So now I could create, applyforusaidfunding.com, and someone could put in the basic idea that they want to build, say, playgrounds in Nigeria or whatnot, and they can have some prompts that help them expand that idea, provide more information, and then the prompt chain would continue filling up the full plan with things that take a long time to do, like writing a theory of change or a monitoring and evaluation cycle. And these things take time, but ChatGPT does it like instantly and uses the right language. So that's one of the use cases that I'm looking to build out, because that would, every time you write a proposal, it's taking 100 hours between you and your colleagues to get it out.
That's really cool. One thing that I was playing around with the other day was it was for any topic that I might be a little rough in, or like maybe I hadn't had the time to learn about. So say for instance, just as an example, you can say, teach me biology in 3 hours, or like write a small course curriculum for me to learn biology in 3 hours. And it says like, okay, first you're going to learn about cells, and then you're going to learn about the mitochondria, and then you're going to learn about and it kind of provides basically almost like on the education side, it could be like a self-based curriculum or like an at-home curriculum where a lot of people now are kind of transitioning or kind of trying to find bolt-ons to the additional kind of school system that they put their kids through. And so here it's like, okay, well, I got to teach my kid about like the history of the US. It's like, well, where the hell do I start? Like, which books do I read? What do I buy, right? But here you can kind of say like, look, I want to teach my kid about the US history for a week. Okay, here's a full curriculum, and it'll kind of break it out day by day. And then kind of a prompt that I've seen is like, you can put things into tables too. So it's like, not only is it in paragraph format, but then you can like print it out in a table format and kind of give it to your kid. That was kind of cool.
Then if you put some extra like story to it, to the learnings, then it's also a nice, for example, bedtime story or a story to read for these kids to learn history.
Yeah. I always have the example of Rick and Morty there. So I tried a prompt where you have a piece of information and the GPT can translate it into a conversation between Rick and Morty. So what if you really like Rick and Morty? You can be watching like a Rick and Morty episode about biology, and you just learn biology for like 3 hours by Rick.
Biology by Rick.
Yeah, so I think that would be pretty cool.
I think actually the homeschooling application is where the most opportunity is going to be.
Yeah,
I'm 100%. I saw exactly what you just described, but I'm surrounded by, I live in a developing country, and I'm surrounded by expats that are homeschooling their children. Most of them do not have a teaching background of any sort and are sort of limping through things with printed guidebooks to teach stuff. And I just see this massive opportunity for parents to create their own lesson plans, to give exactly like a script where they could have a dialogue between two characters talking about molecular biology. And another neat thing is that I experimented with this. If you asked it to come up with exercises in a specific philosophy like Montessori or Waldorf, it will do that. So if you say that I believe in a really academic, book-oriented approach, you'll get that. If you say I want a creative, hands-on Waldorf or Montessori style curriculum, you'll get that too. I see huge business potential for a good layer on top of ChatGPT to help parents with that, because most of those parents are not going to have the technical skills to come up with detailed prompt engineering. They're going to be able to say,
putting an AI above it, right?
A UI on top of it. I want to learn about this. They're not going to be able to say, give me all these examples, write this in this style, blah, blah, blah.
How long will it take until builders take the school curriculum, whatever it's called now, and just generate it all the lessons with AI and make it much more fun? Then school system is over.
Then exactly as you're saying too, Rick. It's kind of at the grade level too. You could say, okay, teach me biology at a grade 9 level, and then teach me it at a first year university level.
And you can also get them the responses you get from ChatGPT. You can also get it to speak at a 6th grade level or speak at a university level. So you can make sure that the language being used is age appropriate.
Totally, and that's a sweet part of like the chaining, right? So it's like, okay, start it like this, and then chain it and say, okay, depending on the audience, it's like, okay, I'm talking to somebody that is highly educated versus somebody that's kind of just starting out, and it's really like even that alone, like it's crazy how quickly in these conversations we come up with pretty amazing business ideas.
And so where I go with this is what you'd actually want it to do. You'd want to have like two conversations with the AI. I think one, which was the AI would help you flush out your idea. It would ask you, it would refine so they get more details about how many hours, to take, how many hours per day, blah, blah, blah. Get really good, a better understanding of what you want to output and accomplish. And then you put that through the plan generator, which at the end would give you a 20-page document that has the different sections and tools and whatnot that you want in there. I think this is a really good one for us to play with.
Yeah, totally agree.
So can I have a question, and I wonder if you guys have thought about that. So what I see a lot of people say on LinkedIn and on Twitter is that of course GPT also makes mistakes, and they also have or it also very often results in wrong unfactual answers, things that it just dreamed up and aren't true. So have you guys thought about solutions for that?
There's two things. One, you can tell ChatGPT to only provide factual and verifiable information. You can basically turn off its ability to be creative.
Is that just can you just prompt that, or?
Yeah, just include that in your prompt. Like only provide factual, verifiable information, and don't include speculation, for example.
Or how does it know that? Because I think it isn't able to distinguish.
I'm not sure it fixes it, but it does better. The second thing that you can do is you can provide a review prompt. So you've got the output. Now then you say, act like a professor of this subject, analyze this, identify the flaws in logic, whatnot. You can just say, challenge this and attack it, whatever I've prepared. And then you can have a final a prompt after that, which is integrate the professor's feedback into the original. So that's a way. That's the way I developed for like writing essays. Because you don't know whether it's factual, but you put it out there. Then you get ChatGPT to review, criticize, analyze it, and then you ask for the feedback to be incorporated in the original. And that way you get a more accurate, not necessarily better written, but definitely more accurate output.
This is a great question, Carson. And Nick, it's really interesting how you can kind of do those two things, right? Where you can kind of turn on a flag of saying like, hey, like remove some of the creativity. So it kind of goes from like I don't know, maybe 50% of the time it gets a little bit creative, and then now it's like 90% of the time it's kind of more factual. So that's really interesting. And then the other one, to have it kind of self-analyze, is a really cool kind of recursive idea. On the
so it's kind of a prompt feedback loop or something.
Yeah.
That's how I call it.
I don't know if I've shared it with you guys, but I have a recursive prompt evaluator and feedback generator.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you put in a prompt, you ask it 20 questions, you ask ChatGPT 20 questions about that prompt, and then it will improve that prompt accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a way, because some people forget to mention context or tone or audience. Audience is like, who is the audience? What is their language level? So you can there's about 20 different variables.
The interesting thing on the education side, just to relate to that one, is that if you're teaching somebody like at a grade 5 level or a grade 8 level, having like teachers make mistakes too, right? So if like you're automating it doesn't, like, as long as it's like 90% good, kids will kind of learn and kind of piece things together over time. They don't need to be perfect teacher.
And we're trying to we want kids to learn critical thinking, and and we want, these homeschooling plans, they should have projects that kids can't use ChatGPT to cheat on. They should be well designed to demonstrate critical thinking and application of thoughts and stuff like that.
So even for them to be critical of the AI is a good thing too, right? Like, we are all critical of the AI because we know where it kind of came from and how it's being developed. We've kind of seen the evolution. Whereas like kids in high school or in preschool might grow up being like, hey, like, just ask the AI because it knows all. And it's like, oh,
yeah.
So here's
I still think coming back to my question about like how do you know if it's really speaking the truth, so you propose two really good ways probably to make it give better results, but I actually also have an idea that I see one startup use, and I will post some links here. It's called perplexity.ai. They have a search engine that gets all the results from Bing chat or Bing search, and then puts them all together and reference to the results. Mm-hmm. So it's a really good way to have references in a result, and it's based on this article. They didn't copy the code of WebGPT, but it's based on this paper of WebGPT. It's browser assistant question answering with human feedback, and I think that's really interesting because that way they've kind of made it possible to get facts from ChatGPT or from GPT-3 even. I don't think they use ChatGPT. So they basically they use a real source of facts, of data, of websites that have certain information on them, and use the ChatGPT or a GPT model to summarize those data points and give a relevant answer instead of only a bunch of links and information. So that way, I think it's a really interesting way to combine real true data and the language model. And I think if you are able to do something like that, then maybe it's even better at answering questions without any lies in them.
That's a good idea. I would remind us all that just because it's on the top of Google search doesn't mean that it's accurate, and just because a teacher is saying something, it doesn't mean it's accurate either. So
but it's good to at least also have a reference, because that's
and to have
that
different ways of testing
is lacking, because they never have a reference to a real source of where how did they come to an answer.
You can put citations. Ask ChatGPT to add citations.
Yeah, if you would have a ChatGPT with citations, that would be amazing, I think.
Just ask ChatGPT to add citations to its report.
Oh, does it work? Because I get some dead links also.
It does give you fake it has given me fake citations. It has.
Yeah. And also,
But-
yeah, so I'm not sure. That's the thing, you know. But if I think with a technology like this, where if you combine it with NetBot, I don't know if you have heard of that one, but someone
Which
sent
one?
it to me. NetBot. I will send you the.
No.
I think I also put it in the chat, and I'll do it again.
Yeah.
NetBot is this. At that time, he was the CEO of GitHub, I think. Nat Friedman or something. I don't know his name, but. He made basically a Python script that is able to control the browser with GPT, GPT-3, that is. So it's like Nat Friedman, that's his name. And he, there's in that link, there's a tweet to where he demonstrates it. But that was built on GPT-3. But I think that this thing can be used if you combine it basically with the referencing into you can basically add references that you actually find on Google or something. You can add those to every prompt that you give it, maybe.
That's really cool, Carson. I was opening all the links that you sent. Perplexity AI, the official kind of paper there about GPT searching, and then the NetBot. Really interesting. And Nick, to your point there, I was just adding in, I added, tell me about biology, and add in citations. What was interesting, and I didn't realize, but it seems like ChatGPT pulls from the Encyclopedia Britannica 2021 a lot. So it basically told me about biology. It talked about biology, cell biology, evolution, genetics, ecology, molecular biology, and all of the citations reference that Encyclopedia Britannica, which is, I guess, one of the like de facto standards of kind of human knowledge. So especially for some of these like core topics. It might reference very applicable, but it's really cool how, again, with prompt chaining, we are able to kind of basically turn something that it's like, okay, this is a cool article. Give me where you got all this information from. It's like, okay, we got it from here, 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 here. It's like, okay, well, that's pretty sweet, because then we can go check those references and see if we agree with them. For me, the Encyclopedia Britannica would be de facto kind of standard for kind of acceptance criteria, saying like, okay, that was relatively scrutinized and vetted for solid information.
I did see someone post something where Britannica is perfect for most college level applications or undergraduate level applications. I saw someone who was doing some really advanced science work, and he pulled up he had it do some work for him, and it pulled up citations from papers in 2021.
Wow.
So I'm guessing when you get into more nuanced subject areas, it will probably give you better reference areas or reference citations, but in more generic areas, there might just be too much content for it to be able to find a good citation.
Yeah. Really cool. Yeah. It's unbelievable, actually. I haven't kind of seen that side, but for it to reference any papers, or for them to kind of open AI's data set to kind of have those access to those papers is just amazing.
So I'll share another just side interest, not with prompt engineering, but I sat down with a lawyer a couple days ago, just before Christmas. He's from Quebec. And I was telling him about ChatGPT, and he's like, okay, well, let me test it out. Created an account, went in there and asked it an obscure question about Quebec law. And he got goosebumps at the result, because he'd been working on that for 2 weeks to come up with the answer that ChatGPT gave him right then, right there. And he's like, I don't know whether I should tell my boss or not. But seeing that light bulb open up when people start trying it, and then when you give them a bit of coaching on how to do it better, they can get even better results.
You should have recorded that. I want to see that. When he sees this thing where he worked on for 2 weeks.
Well, I can get him and other friends that I've helped. We can do some actual live case law, stuff. But that's the content side of things. But yeah, it's pretty it's just really impressive. Where the specific applications in Quebec civil law.
Yeah, it really is so impressive, and I think kind of it's just so untapped. It's brand new, and I think a lot of people kind of learned about it almost like they learned about Google 20 years ago. They're like, oh yeah, I can Google, but then they realize if you look now, it's like they're using Google 15 times a day, and for almost all of their most important decisions of their lives, they're using Google to kind of search, and ChatGPT kind of just has that potential to kind of change lives. And I think that it's just a process for people to kind of learn about it and play around with it. It's almost like a brand new sandbox.
Yeah. Well, and I think that I'd like to, as we're getting close to the end of the call, I'd like to leave you guys with one idea, and I think it's fair to bring this up. What I'd really like to see is either for someone or for us to build a tool where you could basically just pop up a new ChatGPT website every day.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
like if we do the back end, we do the front end, we do the signups, the call to action, and then we launch USAID USAIDprojectdesigner.com one day, and then the next day we launch
cooking websites,
recipes. KetoRecipes.com, then Montessori homeschoolingplans.com.
Almost every prompt is almost like a product, right?
Yeah. It is.
So, and one single prompt, a good prompt, that is.
A good prompt and a good user interface that improves the experience is going to be key. So having some stored prompts on the side to get it to do different things, having it output into a PDF file that's attractively laid out, adding some value. So we're not going to be able to beat ChatGPT at what it does. I think the value that we can add as professionals is we can layer a user interface on ChatGPT that makes for a vastly improved experience for the user. And I don't think that it even has to be that improved, because a lot of people aren't going to take the time to learn how to write prompts and stuff like that if they can just click a few buttons on a website and get what they want. The convenience factor is going to be gorgeous.
Yeah, totally. And especially when some of these prompts can get very complex, right? They're like, once you kind of productize certain prompts, it is at a level that if you just came into a brand new field like education or keto recipes, if you didn't know all of the considerations that could be added into that prompt, you're not going to get the output that you actually want. So there is kind of IP there, or valuable things that you like, because I think a lot of people will respond saying like, oh, it's just built on ChatGPT, I can do that myself. But kind of there's that level of being a prompt engineer where you have a deep knowledge of kind of how ChatGPT works. What are the prompts that you're available to use? How can they be changed in a certain way? Changing the output and giving vastly more valuable results.
I agree.
Absolutely. So funny story from my past. One of the first courses I ever taught was how to be a Google ninja. So when I started working on Wall Street, I got promoted really quickly because I was better than anyone else in the organization at making spreadsheets and doing Google searches. Basically by doing, what we were doing environmental, social, and governance analysis on Wall Street. We were looking for companies that are involved in weapons, gambling, pornography, sin stocks, business activities. And so we basically used Google to find all the bad things that companies in the world are doing. And we had massive spreadsheets with like 100 of keywords and different search terms that would automate and populate into the spreadsheet and stuff like that.
So this may look like for you like a deja vu then, because now
this is like what I did 18 years ago, but so much more powerful. And with all that knowledge since then. So that's one of the reasons why I'm so stoked, because I built my career around advanced Google searches. as fun, like I'm a data analyst, like I'm an analyst, but all I did was do good Google searches and I got promoted real quick.
You know what, I'm gonna stop the recording here, and then at least we will have I think this talk was an unbelievable talk. So looking forward to that.
I think that, I'm